now than not now more than ever, I think things are speeding in a direction and a pace that people are almost incapable of keeping up with the reality and the kind of rapid acceleration of exposure that people are getting to information bombarding them on all sides. And at the same time, there's a hyper acceleration of an attempt to suppress and really manipulate information and distort things to keep this influence, this kind of magnetic pull and draw towards the the maintaining of the manipulated narratives going. And at a time period where it is being addressed and it's being dragged out into the entire collective awareness of the planet, just the levels and degrees of manipulation and the reality that you know um, ideologically motivated kind of brainwashing has taken place. I think it's easier to just rip the band-aid off and get it out in the open and really just address reality for people and to just be upfront about it in a time period where observation is plagued by these ideas of subjective truths and trying to really demoralize and degenerate and degrade the ability to communicate out in the open what's going on when it's so blatant and obvious and you're just being basically conditioned to follow the same kind of existing pre-clandestine narrative of a kind of world structured order set in stone. That the reality we know it's all spoon-fed lies and bullshit. Um, there's a strategic manipulation going on through media and media culture and the influence and the impact that it plays on people that is progressively attempting to ramp up and accelerate its sphere of influence to try and combat the fact and the realization that people are having of just how controlled and how much a kind of field of mental manipulation and mind games and narrative distortion over reality has taken place. In a lot of aspects, it's what I refer to as the unholy chimera. And I've given that moniker, you know, it's a terminology that I kind of picked up delving into like shadow work and psychology. There are two real like distinct juxtaposing forces in this world that kind of separate and segregate, and we see that as a reflection of what is taking place in the world. Um, our internal reality from our external reality. We make them two split distinctive things, and that's the entire game of manipulation and control is to create an external environment so ideologically oppressed with constant lying and deception and manipulation and distortion of reality that you cannot tell up from down and you don't know what to believe or think anymore. And it basically drills you into this conditioned protocol of learned helplessness yet again that was all trained into us as children. And on top of that, there's there's a more kind of infernal, existentially pressed kind of mental, physical, and spiritual trap inlaid in this. Um, Part of it is the pressing and pushing of the narrative of nihilism, just bleak, utter, hopeless nihilism, which is a trap in itself. It's to convince you that, your very semblance of being, your very semblance of peace, you associate and affiliate it with depression. It's painting objective understanding of your state of being in a negative light and lens. It's getting you to associate and affiliate existence with a quantitative quality and a predetermined ideal that your existence by its nature is flawed and mired and riddled in imperfections that just make life and existence itself a reflection of just what is flawed. And this is deception. This is pushing you to continuously take on an ideological lens to the world that is rooted and seated in an entropic way of thinking, a negative perspective and viewpoint of how you observe and view the world. Our entire world is reinforcing this paradigm and trying to drop this on everyone right now. And I'm going to teach you how to escape this thought trap. The juxtaposition to the real world, what I call the unholy chimera, is actually in Jungian psychology and shadow work, more the influence of understanding the psychological chimera that exists within us. That there's a lot of symbolism rooted in humanity through the understanding of aspects of things like the Trinity or a kind of trifecta of nature. And in the mind and how the mind works, that this is no different. Your mind operates through, a cognitive kind of trifecta of different forces playing to puzzle piece and picture together your entire broad understanding of how reality plays out to you and how your thoughts kind of latch on and attach and create your understanding of the world around you. You have the ego, the I, and the superego, and all of these play a role between the subconscious and conscious mind of building and creating the full external picture of reality. It's the entire makeup of both the positive and the negative. In a lot of different beliefs and viewpoints, what has been misconstrued is turning either the I, which is oftentimes represented by the symbolism of a dragon, ironically. It's that voice in the back of your mind that gets you to doubt and question and overthink everything and overanalyze everything. It's the guilt, it's the shame, it's that nasty persnickety, like you worthless, hopeless, just sweet summer child of a thing. That kind of voice, that devilish voice that we all have that preys upon our insecurities and our regrets and things like that. We all possess this to a level and degree. The superego is that part of us that extends outward from just the kind of like basic identity structure and core identity structure of what we have, and it's kind of a super extension of all the things that make up our identity. The ego is literally just our persona. And all three of these things work as a kind of trifecta in themselves. They are a trinity in themselves. Symbolic character that represents these quite effectively is to think of them like a chimera, and not in a negative lens and perspective, but to understand in their totality they're a raw product of nature, just as your mind is a raw product of nature. It is a reflective, mirrored, observing, thinking puzzle box of information, memory, the entirety of the human experience, imagination, dreams, fantasy, an objective viewpoint of reality. It itself is an extension of what you are as an organism. And then interlaced within all that, you have the product of consciousness, which kind of is both observing and acting as the observed phenomenon of the world. And it's really relatively unexplainable that the phenomenon of consciousness takes place. We just know that it is, and it does take place, and is taking place, and has been taking place forever. All surrounding this, we have our structures, this kind of fractalized interpretation of the world from our viewpoint and perspective as these personified characters that we are. And the world around us right now, and the world we are experiencing and witnessing, and what we are being brought to light to understand, is that the entire world construct of the modern civilization that is built around us is a big smoke and mirrors game. It's a big hall of mirrors. Ripping the band-aid immediately off, the world is constructed and strategically meant to prey on your psychology and your cognitive beliefs about yourself and the world around you. And it's basically manufactured and fabricated to get you to participate in the structure of society and civilization by funneling you into different branching pathologies of, behavioral norms and characteristics. The reality about living and being a human being and understanding, the nature of existing in reality, even from a microcosmic perspective, your experience and who you are as a human being is an entirely malleable thing. It's constantly changing, it's constantly growing, it's constantly evolving, and it's this feedback loop of both internal and external relation to the world around you that builds and compounds and makes up your character and your identity structures and who you change and grow to be. And at any given time and circumstance, something can catalyze that changes it. You can catalyze that and change it through your own willpower or factors in your genetics, circumstances that happen external of you, things that you come to realize over time, or experiences shaped from memory can have a play and role and impact that completely change your understanding and your relation to the world around you. Overlaid on top of the world around us, it's just a base foundation. It's a neutral state of being, just as we, inherently are kind of neutral coming into the world until external forces act upon us in a way. You have this templated, formulated, highly calculated, scientific, and at times very predatory system built through our civilizations, its infrastructure, and the utilization of psychology and media and advertising and social engineering that preys upon and manipulates and steers the human mind into different pathologies that are all about limiting beliefs and limiting identity structures and limiting your autonomy and your sovereignty to always being controlled by external forces and circumstances of influence and manipulation. Our external world is entirely built and constructed on manipulating human psychology. The modern era and the modern paradigm of reality and existence, it's about steering human cognitive understanding and awareness. What we have to rip the band-aid off about and start realizing about the nature of existing as the beings that we are is, while we are technically malleable and influenceable from external forces in us, they don't actually really define us as much as we think they do, so much as they play a role in our full understanding, coming into awareness about different aspects of the world around us that play a role and an impact on us. It is always a choice to choose what influence and steers and motivates and navigates us. In reality, what we oftentimes come to a conclusion of is it's always us moving ourselves through the experience of being alive, through the experience of everything playing out. In a lot of ways, life is like a very elaborate and very convincingly crafted dream in the fabric of how the mind puzzle pieces together everything. It's a very condensed dream reality. It is all energy condensed to a slow vibration. It's matter is just energy given fucking a kind of very crystallized density. And no different on how this world has been constructed. You can see it that way. The world feels a lot of times, and we identify and associate and affiliate it with this idea of limitation, of a construct that is a lot of times like a prison cell or a confining circumstance. And that's because matter itself, life itself, and the human reflection of nature playing out through us is kind of this anatomical biological life form that has the ability to both create and break the very limits it puts through its conceptualization of thinking. A human being creates and breathes and speaks reality into being. Life is a story you tell through your actions and what you put into motion. The danger lies in becoming so identified with the tool of mind and thinking and not understanding the conscious lying beneath it that you become identified with the mind, whether it be the ego, the superego, or the I. These things can become, deified to you. These structures that basically produce what we see playing out in the world, what is essentially these constructs of group collective thinking. These are cultural egregores, these are historical egregores. Our politics, our belief systems, all these are constructs of identifying and affiliating and associating with long spending time periods of societal influences putting and placing pressure upon this species that controls and steers and navigates us into accepting a kind of set of parameters and limitations which we take upon in our identity as being the nature of reality. In truth, none of these are the nature of reality. Reality is just a neutral, open field. Reality, more than anything, you can see it like a desert or an ocean. It it's a neutral playing field. Humanity is a species that has been playing with its own mirages for eons and centuries. They are creations of our own making and reflections of nature playing through us that we identify as things as our own making. This is where the kind of mere trick and the mere principle at play through both nature and through the very structures we've created for our human civilization that have gone so awry and askew become the little trick and the little break in that cage, the little crack in things through which the light pours through. You begin to realize the identity structure and the identity complex of human beings and the nature of what we have done. We projected an elaborate kind of dream-like fantasia onto matter and built an actual physical template out of our ideas. We become identified with the roles we play in that dream-like construct, that imaginary construct, this world of sandcastles. We ourselves have limited and really created and fabricated an entire way of going about the world that is through this narrative of anthropomorphizing our own personas and personalities based on the boundaries and the existing within this limited kind of industrialized civilizational mainframe of thinking and behaving and acting. It's um, it's a self-imposed and communally reinforced mental game of existing within this templated way of viewing and observing the world through a kind of cultural egregore, or to put it better, formalities of different class-based conscious constructs. That's what society and civilization is. That's what your social game is. That's what social engineering plays and preys off of, is tweaking, hardwiring, and really manipulating these long-spanning kind of cultural egregores to become deified in a lot of ways. These identity structures of how we view and observe our rules and parameters of the game of society we play are, how the archetypes that live and abide within society should act and behave and what constitutes them. They're all limiting beliefs, or their beliefs set in parameters, to put it more um, accurately, how the very structure and the nature of our morality or our identity or our thoughts and thinking ought to be. And it is not necessarily a negative thing. This is what's to understand about this. It's a trap. A couple days ago, I got an AI generated video on YouTube through my fucking algorithm that feeds and pumps all this bullshit. And it was talking about the idea of, coming into, the one big trap of self-awareness, which is the golden cage. Once you see the illusion, it's very hard to escape the reality that now you've kind of you've jailbroke your mind to seeing the nature of what reality is. It's a big kind of ethereal dreamscape that this species is collectively playing out through a theodramatic story. Um, it's it's a mirage of our own making that we have accepted to be sets of truths, when in reality it's an entirely malleable field of influences that have existed and been passed down generation from generation from generation through influences both internal and external. Um, Life really escaping that golden cage is not realizing or falling for the conditioned belief and ideal that life is a bleak nihilistic thing, is to realize that life is an entirely blank canvas in itself. And the malleability, while it is important to understand that boundaries and limitations are not a negative thing, they are what hold and puzzle piece things together so that they have a semblance of structure to them, order, which is necessary and born from chaos, ironically, born from there being disorder, born from, momentary lapses of things deconstructing or falling apart or decaying or being destroyed, that give birth to new creations. It's a continuous repetitive cycle that plays out through nature. The escaping of the golden cage is realizing that the cage itself is also a creation of the mind. No matter what your circumstance is, I think this is what rooted me to the core, appreciation of things like the Buddhist ideas and Zen and stuff like that. Even though I'm just, I'm not even a practitioner of really anything at this point. I still on occasion meditate, but at this point in time, I more enjoy the experience of just going through life as it comes, and finding ways to appreciate and really look at the detail of everything around me, and finding just little passing fleeting pleasures and just accepting things as they are steadily. I can't control all of external reality. None of us can. There's nobody at the helm of any of this. The universe has produced a species which is essentially dreaming reality and its interpretation of reality into existence and creating like a mirror what nature did to produce them. That's the reality of what's happening and taking place through human beings. It's produced a species that is making constructs in its own image, the way nature produced constructs born out of its own image that work towards building a species that have the capacity to do this. Humanity is just a mere reflection of what nature and the entirety of nature is doing, given this particular form, this particular circumstance, on this particular planet. And it's a meticulous thing that goes completely contrarian to all our morals and our history and understanding of these things. It's a mosaic of all of them. All the division and separation sewed by the different identity structures and beliefs, they're different pieces of the puzzle. That's what's to be understood. All of them play a role in different variables in both light and dark aspects of what nature has produced through the human being. In a lot of ways, the play of duality is the big game of the theodrama taking place on the world and in the world. It's a big dramatic stage game. It's a big occult chess game, is what the story really is. All the things being exposed right now, this all was kind of a result of hubris, which always swings back around, which is a reoccurring theme in nature itself. It's a destructive cycle of patterns and things catching up to us, from getting too big for our britches. Created a world that, by its very natures, or by its very nature, tried to supersede nature. Nature does not produce anything that can supersede it because it creates nothing that it, it'll never create something more superfluous than what by its design is already perfectly perfect in a lot of ways. It's our own mind and the playing of our minds and our mirages that have distorted and created this paradigm of just sick, almost, you know, really sadomasochistic ways of viewing reality. Humans, as a species, some of them gazed into the void of reality and the open vastness of it, and they saw a blank canvas to let the imagination run wild. And through that, they realized they were basically like a mirror of what the universe is doing. It's a storyteller. All of creation, what you call God or what you call Source, it's a dreamer. It's a cosmic dream. It's a storyteller. Yeah, I'll be that guy that says the absurd thing, but like, you do the research yourself, or you do your deep delving, your dungeon delving, and your studying, and you're going to come to the same conclusion. It doesn't matter. No veneers or disguises or piety or gurus, necessary. Anybody can come to this understanding. In fact, the entire journey of life and living is basically just coming to your own version of this same understanding. It's one big collective dream, expressing itself through infinite potentials of multiple little fractals. Some we would categorize as good, some we would categorize as not so good, some of them benevolent, some of them malevolent, some of them play out in ways that catalyze, positive things. Some of them literally decay or become corrupted and prey on things and literally embody the destructive forces of nature. And they, in turn, deteriorate and erode themselves down, as we see happening and taking place in the world. The clinging and the vying for power and control over anything in this world is the greatest illusion, because nobody's ever in control of the consequence or the circumstance to begin with. It all takes place and moves in a motion and a direction where always everything is moving in the direction of better understanding itself. The trick and the illusion of our society and civilization, how it was constructed, it was a big spectacle of distractions, and the people trying to hide the dirty secrets basically put a box around them that had mirrors on the outside with a hall of mirrors surrounding all of it. So the illusion created the idea that the box was invisible. In reality, the box was always there and they were always hiding it. And the Emperor has no clothes. Oz the Great and Powerful, the magician at the end of the road, is just a little old man pulling cranks and knobs and doing weird shit behind closed doors. Cruel, ironic joke. But the joke is that that never was the reality of what was taking place on the planet. That was the human spectacle and the human distraction. That's the human game. That's the illusion. That's the samsaric wheel. The things perpetuating the motion of the illusion. The spectacle is nothing but a circus. And just because the circus is going on, this is another thing to understand. The circus is part of the experience. It's how we move through the circus and what we do in the circus to redefine it and make it a better thing that ultimately affects the direction it goes. While we exist in this world, it allows and facilitates the same conduit and path and avenue to make a better circumstance out of something that is, what we see as horrendous and ugly. Okay, where are the people stepping in to fix it and correct it and turn it into something that is actually, a beautiful thing? Because everything that we do here on this planet, it's a construct of our imagination. It's a construct of our ability to create and be creative and use our imagination for good things or bad things. It takes people wanting to step in and do good things with that force to make the world a better place. If nobody's acting upon that and everybody's just giving in to the doomeristic, nihilistic, hopeless trap of the golden cage, the golden prison, if you're seeing the world as a prison, not understanding that the prison door was never locked and it's always open, you could always step outside of it and do something else. You can redefine your entire way of looking at it. If you understand that you're actually entirely free and the only walls that are built around you are things that contain a body, but it's your ability to observe reality and use your mind and its potential to draw outside the boundaries or rewrite the boundaries entirely. That's the thing to understand. That's a lot of what influences me to do what I do. And that's the draw to it as an influence I think it had, was that it's an open vehicle for expression. It still requires discipline, it requires boundaries, it requires limitations, it requires understanding my body's limitations, my mind's limitations, the amount of shit that I have to put myself through. But it's an open vehicle for the expression of human potential, human creativity in a lot of ways. And the influence that we all play, as a crowd observing that little spectacle, that little phenomenon in that squared circle that I participate in. For me, that is squaring the circle. For me, that is alchemy. For me, that is a work of literally putting my life in dedication to a practice that is a life-spanning work. And a lot of aspects are reflected in that. Same thing with the things that played into building the entirety of what led up to that. It's all components getting thrown in that little alchemical cauldron. To me, that and just the play of symbolism and fantasy and stuff like that, and the history of the world, it puzzle pieced the mosaic better for me than any words written in a tome could describe. Although the words in the tome help broaden the horizons and are a part of that too. Just cannot deny that them being there does not play a role in this. It's just understanding a lot of the things that are isolated and separated in this world are that way and try to keep and remain that way, withstand the test of time to sow division, or they unintentionally sow division through ignorance. Things keep moving, things keep changing, things keep evolving, things steadily are always moving in the direction of becoming more observed, and we keep learning. Even when the force is working upon us from the external environment, or literally attempting